Before we jump into today's show, I've got a really exciting announcement to make. The autumn cohorts for Start Your Podcast group program are now open. There are 5 dates between September and October, and it's a 6-week program that will get you launched before Christmas. So if podcasting was on your to-do list this year, if you really want to get your podcast up and done by the end of 2023, then come and join me for one of those cohorts and let's make it happen. I have a free masterclass available for you called Understanding the Power of Podcasting. You can go over to donnaeade.com/masterclass, watch the masterclass and get access to that enrollment. I hope to see you in one of the autumn cohorts very soon. That's donnaeade.com/masterclass. Let's get back to the show. Welcome to the Wedding Procast UK. My name is Donna Eade and I am the founder of the Society of Professional Wedding Vendors, and I am a 10-year wedding photography veteran. Today on the show we have Arwyn Bailey, and he is a photographer too, and he specialises in architectural corporate photography, and he is here to talk to us about a very special competition we're running. So let's dive in to today's episode. Before we jump in, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast where you listen. If you are an iPhone user, then head to Apple Podcasts and subscribe to the Wedding Procast UK. If you are an Android user or prefer Spotify, Stitcher or iHeartRadio, then you can subscribe to us there. Hit that subscribe button and you will make sure that you don't miss out on any new episodes. We release episodes every Thursday. You can also join us over at www.spwv.co.uk. Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. I am so super excited today. I know that for the last 54-ish weeks, I have been talking about how I was a wedding photographer and I always use photography as my example in everything, and I'm always apologising for it. Well, today I am not going to be apologising, because today I have Arwyn Bailey with me. He is a very, very awesome photographer. His architectural pictures are outstanding. I love to see them when I'm on social. So Arwyn, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today.
Thank you very much, Donna. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's a privilege and a pleasure. Thank you.
It is really exciting. And today we're doing something a little different, because Arwyn actually does a lot of video and he is actually videoing today's episode. And so it's very strange for me. I'm trying to remember that I'm also being videoed as well as being voice recorded. So I might do some weird things in the video. So when Arwyn brings that out.
Lovely.
Thank you. So when you're watching that, guys, do look out for any weird faces.
And I hate the shiny bit on my head, so you know.
Oh, we all have our hang-ups, don't we?
We do.
Strange. We do. Anyway, Arwyn, please do introduce yourself. Let us know a little bit about your background, what got you into photography, what you've done with your photography career, and tell us all about that.
Sure. Yeah. That's really good. Thank you very much indeed. Basically, I was given my very first camera when I was aged about 4 and a half, 5. And on the wall behind me, you can see a load of cameras. I'll move the mic for a minute. Oh, that way. And that one there is the very first camera that I was given. I think it is anyway. It's by my grandmother, given by my grandmother. And I remember standing at the frozen pond, the frozen lake in my hometown of Leamington Spa. And I was standing in front of the ducks on the frozen pond with the box camera. And you go, click, that's it. You either got portrait, landscape, and you just push the shutter down. And I couldn't wait to get these images back. It was like a magic box for me, you know, that I'd captured these moments in time. And I go by the name of the Time Lord. Yeah, Time Lord now, because I thought it up, because I capture moments in time. Normally got a Mad Max goggles on, my bowler hat and so on. And so that inspired me. So it's always been with me, photography, right from a very young age. And my dad, he always had a camera with him. and he shot Kodachrome slides. He wasn't any good, to be honest. He wasn't a good photographer at all. He's just a keen amateur. And he was on a Spectrum, we now know and would call it. And basically he would stand there with a notebook, with the light meter, measure the light. He would write down the aperture, the shutter speed, the equivalent of the ISO, and so on, and where it was taken at the exact time. And we used to stand for hours posing. And we used to hate it. But when my niece did a degree in photography, her final project had to be something, and she chose The Life of My Mum. And there were 3,500 Kodachrome slides available for her to do the whole project by. So she went through them painstakingly, slowly, and scanned hundreds of them and made them into some books which we could buy on Blurb and so on, which I bought. And it brought back so many memories. And for me, that's what photography is. It's capturing those really important, beautiful memories in that split second in time. And there's nothing like it. And even you talk about weddings, it doesn't matter with weddings, headshots, family events, corporate events. If I stand there and take a photo, even the person standing next to me taking a photo has not taken the same photo.
No.
They're not in the same position. It's a unique fraction of a second of time in the history of the universe. And you've gone, bang, I've caught it.
Wow.
I mean, that's what inspires me to carry on doing it, really. Yeah. One of the things. I just think it's a magic box. I really do.
It's so true. And it's so similar. Like, I remember the first time I got hold of a camera was when I was in third year at junior school. So that's year 5 now. And my mum let me take my dad's camera. She didn't let me take hers. She let me take my dad's camera. Now, she had one of those ones. It was the long, thin one. It had the little clip, and you flipped it open to reveal the shutter, and you could kind of hold it like a pair of binoculars that you have at the opera. And my dad's was it was a long, thin one without that flip part. And oh my goodness.
I don't know whether this is like it, but here's a long thin one, and this is called a coronet.
That's a little older, I think. We're a little coronet, bit. Talking the ones that had the films in, that were the long thin films with the little circle, the thin negatives. So just before we got to the 35mm, and I got to take my dad's to this school trip that I went on, and I took photos all day. I was so proud to have this camera, and hardly anybody else had a camera. But the one thing that I never did was let anybody take a picture of me. There is not one picture of me on that day, because I was too scared that somebody might break my dad's camera. So I didn't let anyone else touch it. And from that day on, I was hooked.
Did you dislike your photo being taken there? Because I hate my photo being taken.
I'm not a fan. I wasn't a fan, but from being a photographer and being one who was passionate about women being in photos for their children and things like that, it's kind of encouraged me to get over myself a little bit. Right. But I'm not a fan of being in front of the camera.
I've never got over myself. I hate it. At family events, there's very few photos of me. So, but I've not quite got over it.
Oh dear. So tell us a little bit more about your career, what you've done with your career in photography.
Yeah, well, my career is very checkered. I went to art college then, did a diploma, and one of the topics was photography, and so we're in the darkroom, and I learnt how to do black and white 35mm, process it in the darkroom. And in the darkroom, you taking a picture of something in the tree trunk or something was not quite exposed enough, so you're cutting out pieces of card around the shape of the tree trunk, and you're shaking them. You can't see on the podcast, but you're shaking the pieces of paper to blur the edges. And now we use software. I mean, people say, oh, well, a photograph should look how it looks at the time, but we were doing cut and pasting then in different ways in the darkroom. It's just in some ways it's easier now. And then I left college and height of unemployment and so on, couldn't get a job. And then basically I went away from photography as a career for many, many years, basically. But I always had a camera with me. Always had a camera with me, family events and so on, and people were always asking me to do the odd shoot at a family event or take pictures of the kids or whatever it might be. And then in 2012, had a bit of a year. Very beginning of the year, I had a minor form of cancer, came back, bladder cancer. That was in the January. Then my brother sadly took his own life in the April, and then in the August, I had bronchial scar tissue on my left lung. And then my mom, who was in a care home and was registered blind, we're in front of her. She had a massive stroke, which would kill a lot of people, but disable people if they came out of it. She survived for 10 days until she said goodbye to her brother. Funnily enough, she was, semi-comatose. But when her brother had visited her, and then we'd left them in the room, then he left, then half an hour after he was there, she passed away, and we're holding a hand and so on. So I had all of that happen. And at the time, I was running my own pretty successful financial advice firm, mortgage company and financial advice. And I decided I'm giving it up. So I gave it up. And then I thought, what can I do with my life? It isn't quite retirement time, but what can I do? What can I do to bring some money in? And I proudly thought, I know photography. I'll get a professional camera. So I asked my niece who'd done the photography degree. I said, what camera would you get? And she said, what camera? And I bought one, and I got the camera, held it in my hand, and I thought I knew photography. And I was using a digital camera. And I went, bloody hell, there are a lot of buttons on this thing. How the heck do you use this? And I was flummoxed. And I'm a visual learner. I don't like reading lots of manuals. And so I hired a local studio, and they got a photographer in for me. And I had a session. I invited some friends in with family, kids, a musician. He's still using photos today with his French horn. And that got me a lot of work, actually. And basically, I shot in the studio a load of shots. And that's really where I started off becoming a professional photographer. And I sometimes question the word, what does it actually mean to be a professional photographer, professional chef, professional dressmaker? What does that actually mean? But anyway, we'll perhaps discuss that another time. But and that's where I set up as a professional from my home and hiring out this studio for families and so on. And that's where it all started. And that was 2013. I got the camera, January 2013, and hired the studio, and it all went from there.
Yeah, that's so strange, because where you say that you were the photographer that everybody, like, you got the family events and everything, I remember distinctly when Facebook first sort of was around. Sort of 2007 is when I joined Facebook, and I think it was probably a couple of years later, I was hanging out with a group of people that I was going out drinking with every weekend, and I would be the one with the digital camera. I would be taking photos of everything, and they always used to say they knew when Donna had been on a night out, because on Sunday the internet froze and you couldn't get on Facebook because I was uploading all the photos from the night before. But I was always very conscious that I never put bad pictures up of people. No. I always made sure they were good photos, and I would hate it if other people took photos of me, because they would always they just blanket put them up, whereas I always thought about it. So I really resonated with that. It just made me laugh.
I think that might be one thing that determines a professional photographer, actually. That basically your objective in taking photographs of people as a professional is not to make them look bad, but to make them look great and fantastic, and something about their character, their personality. And you don't put those compromising photos up there unless you're one of the paparazzi and so on. You're going to make money from that, which I don't like personally.
Yeah.
And I do feel sorry for politicians with it. Ed Balls or Miliband biting into the burger. These cameras they're using are doing 20, 30, 40 frames a second, some of them. And anybody eating is going to look terrible in that split second. Anybody.
That's why, as a wedding photographer, you sit down during the meal. You don't sit there taking photos of the bride and groom eating.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And that might be a distinction, actually, one of the distinctions of what is a professional.
Absolutely. So let me know, what would you say has been the highlight of your photography career? What's been the best thing that you've done, or your favourite shoot that you've done?
Yeah, I think there are so many, but I think what enabled me to change direction, because I was doing a lot of kids, families, weddings and things like that, and I wasn't gaining as much traction as I thought I might, or thought I deserved, because I was a bit arrogant about that. I was going to take the world by storm. And I was going networking for my business, and I'd known this guy, Ian, of a logistics company. And I knew that he was doing events, and big events all over the world, but I couldn't imagine how big they were. And I'd known him for about a year and a half, 2 years. And he then said to me, after we'd done some one-to-ones over that period of time, he said to me, how'd you fancy going out to Cologne to shoot a show? I said, what's the show? And he said, it's Gamescom. I said, Gamescom, what's that? And then I looked it up, and it's the largest gaming show in the world on the planet, in Cologne, in Germany. And so I said, okay, then, yeah, I'm up for that. What do you want? He said, well, we need photography and video of the stand being built and so on. I said, yeah, that's fine. So how long's that? He said, it's about 2.5 weeks. I said, really? Gosh, right, okay. First of all, about 2 weeks before the show, he said, oh, you're going to Germany in 2 weeks' time. I said, am I? And luckily, I didn't have anything on. So I went out to Germany, and then I came back in the middle, and then I went back out again, because I said, you need the whole story. And I had a pass for the press day when it launched and so on. And Gamescom, if you imagine the NEC arena, and you imagine seven or nine of those halls that size, that's the size of Gamescom. And people go on push bike scooters, rollerblades from hall to hall. I was covering 4 stands in one hall: Fortnite, owned by HP, Forza by Ford, and Xbox 360. And then I was covering the games company Bandai in another hall, which was 2 halls away. And that took me about 15 minutes to walk to with all my gear. And I think that was one of the most memorable and surprising, because I was the only photographer stroke videographer there for the 2.5 weeks of the build. There wasn't a single other one. Press day, they all flood in. And I recorded, for instance, the Fortnite built a set from the game Fortnite with a zip wire, a buckaroo thing, and so on. Owned by HP built a gyroscope on the top of their stand. Xbox 360 had a McLaren sports car driven onto the stand. And I'm the only photographer there and videographer filming as they drive this McLaren car into the stand. I'm the only one there where they've got all the rigging for the lights and speakers and so on low down. They're putting it on, and they fly it, which is they get it in the air. I'm the only person there filming Fortnite stand going up and coming to life. Nobody else is there doing any of this. Yeah. Then I was there for the opening day, and that got me into events. And I've since done Mobile World Congress Barcelona. I've worked with Microsoft in London Docklands, and I've done a lot of these events, and I love it. And I love the buzz of those events. And the team you are with, it's like a band of brothers and sisters. It really is, where you're going out for meals, you're going out for a drink, you're not getting pissed or anything like that, but you're just enjoying people's company. And people I never knew are now lifelong friends. Yeah. I think that for me is one of the highlights, and it opened up into a whole new world. And I've got so much to thank Ian for on that. So yeah, that would be one of the highlights, I would say.
Yeah. Sounds really exciting.
Oh, it's fantastic.
I kind of get it, but I mean, it's nowhere near as exciting. But I used to work for the British Healthcare Trade Association, and we actually have a trade show that happens at the NEC every year. So I would go, and there is that camaraderie, there is that, all going out for dinner at night, and it's a great team building activity for sure. And yeah, although not as exciting as gaming, I'm sure most of the staff at the BHTA would rather have been at the gaming one.
Yeah. And I was 7 weeks out of having my right hip replaced. And I was walking,
doing all that walking.
Yeah, and climbing up A ladders onto the top of an unbuilt, incomplete Fortnite a set that didn't have steps in. And I decided to go up a ladder onto the top, and then I thought, how do I get down? Then they're actually holding my hand while I get down with a croc hip. And I'm doing 20,000 steps a day. It was kill or cure, basically. Yeah.
So. Well, it's definite, and that is the sort of thing, again, that professional photographers will do. We'll get ourselves into all sorts of situations to get that shot.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh dear. So let's talk a little bit about wedding photography in particular. If somebody was looking to get into the wedding photography industry, what sort of things do you think in the current climate should they be looking out for? What should they be doing? What things should they avoid and things like that?
Yeah. Okay. One of the reasons why I actually didn't continue doing wedding photography, I loved it. And first of all, it's a privilege. It's such an honor to be asked to capture those moments in time and to be entrusted with that on the day. It really is such an honor. I don't think there's a greater honor as a wedding photographer in photography. And there are so many disaster stories and so on. But I think if you are wanting to get into that field of photography, the first thing to bear in mind that in the day of a wedding, over a period of one day, you are going to be challenged in every aspect of lighting. You're going to have the dull church or the bright civil ceremony area or whatever it might be. But wherever it is, the lighting is not going to be ideal for photography, whether it be the civic centre, whether it be the town hall, whether it be the church, chapel. It's not going to be ideal. And there's not a lot you can do about that.
No.
Then you get outside, and in England, Wales, Ireland, Scotland, whatever, it could be dull, cloudy, it could be bright sunshine, it could be intermittent between the two, and you've got a whole new realm there. You've got, if you're doing the brides, maids and bride on the day, makeup, you have got that. You're cramped for space, but the lighting there is not good. And then you've got the reception, which can be anything. And then you've got the first dance, which is dull disco lights. And then you've got the bride and groom leaving, if you're booked to stay that long, which is pitch black. So I believe that wedding photography is challenging because you have, over that whole day, every single lighting situation you can possibly imagine.
Yeah.
And to think that you can buy a professional camera, as I did, and just go out there, I'm a wedding photographer because I know weddings, it's not going to happen. You're going to ruin somebody's day. And my advice is, please don't do it. But there are so many weekend warriors out there who are building up a portfolio and they're doing it for 49 quid, 200 quid, whatever it is. And I think it is pretty despicable that people do that, to be honest. The way of doing it for me is finding a reputable tutor. There are lots of courses you can go on where they hire models and they explain how to do it. Once you've done that, you're still not a wedding photographer. Try and find a local photographer and you can accompany them round and you can do some of the B-roll type imagery, but you can gather together some groups. Once they've done one group photo, you can gather other people and you can start learning your craft within dull buildings where it doesn't matter, in the bright sunlight where it doesn't matter, where you have not yet learnt why a photographer has got the flash on and it's bright sunlight on a white dress, and why you really haven't learnt yet something called infill flash to create shadows. Otherwise, it's just white reflection of light back to the camera. You need to do all of that.
Yeah.
And once you've learnt all of that, and once that wedding photographer is starting to use some of your images, you're starting to get there. And then at some point, you then seek out the smaller weddings, and you have to be honest with people. I was right from the start. I said to people, this is my price. And I remember my very first wedding photography. They chose me because I was more personable. And basically, I said, this is my very first wedding. But I still charged a reasonable price because I believed I could do it. But I was honest to the couple. Yeah. I didn't try and build a portfolio on a course and then boast and say, this is my pictures from a wedding and it's all false. Because you can tell it. I just showed them the pictures I'd done and my other work, which wasn't relevant to weddings, and they still booked me. So be honest. And that's what I'd find. But spend time at, 10, 15, I'd say probably about 20 weddings of different types and different venues, learning your craft, and then go out and then be honest with people. This is what I've done accompanying a professional photographer. So therefore, I know I can do it. That's what I would advise people to do.
Yeah.
But don't just leap in there with a camera and think, I'm going to do it. It's not, for most people, it's not going to happen.
I love that. I love that. And the reason I love that is because, although I gave Arwyn the heads up of the kind of questions I was going to ask, I didn't ask for his responses. And as you all know, I am the CEO and founder of the Society of Professional Wedding Vendors. And so it's always a little bit like, oh, what are they going to say? Because we have some very sort of strict rules about our members and how we class our professionals. And one of those things is, making sure that they've got a set number of weddings under their belt before they can have full membership, because we want to know that they've experienced all those different types of situations. And I completely agree with you. And I know it can be hard, guys, when you are looking to get some experience. And, photographers don't make it easy for other photographers, and it can be difficult, but just keep asking, and don't be afraid of doing it for free. Like, a lot of photographers don't have the budget to pay you. They are priced for their profitability, not for an extra photographer. So it's not likely that they're going to be able to pay you. But if you can say, I would like to come along for free, you can teach me, train me, tell me to get out the way, whatever, but I would like to learn, then you're going to get much more of a warm reception from a photographer than going, do you need a second shooter? How much do you pay?
You can find people. That's right. You can find people. And what I would say is, I was shooting in London during lockdown. It was empty, and it was great to go and do some shots of architecture and so on. And it was literally empty. I stood on Southwark Bridge at 5 o'clock, and there was no chance of me being run over. It was just bizarre.
Crazy.
But I was shooting, and this young guy came up to me, and he said, what are you doing this for? And I said, and he had a camera on him. I could recognize the model straight away. And he said, oh, you've got a nice camera. I said, yeah, what are you doing? And he said, well, I'm just shooting a video for myself. I actually start in September at college, September, October in college. But between now and then, I've got some time. So I'm just going out doing some stuff myself, just learning. And he said to me, do you ever need somebody? I am willing to go anywhere you want and just carry your bags because I want to learn.
Wow.
Do you know?
That's the way to ask.
Yeah. I have just been in touch with him because I'm going up to Leeds in a couple of weeks' time to film and photograph the production of the world's first compostable face masks for a company. And no microplastics or anything. They're not biodegradable. They're truly compostable. And basically, he's coming with me. Now, I admire that sort of spirit. And it wasn't, can I come with you to get exposure, to do the... He said, I want to come with you, even just to carry the bags, because I want experience.
Yeah.
I admire that.
Yeah,
I really do admire that. And it's someone humble enough to do that. And so basically you can find people, and then eventually you hope that photographers in the area get to know you and you become the second photographer, because a lot of brides will book a second photographer. And brides, if you're going to book a photographer, in all surveys, when brides are asked, what is the one thing you'd wish you'd spent more money on? It is always, always, always photography. Don't say, oh, you've got a good camera. That's like saying, you see Jamie Oliver or Gordon Ramsay or a chef cook something, and you go round to their house, you have an amazing meal, and you come back and you say, I want that oven because they must have a good oven and hob to cook that meal.
Yeah.
The oven and hob doesn't make the meal. The camera does not make a photographer.
No.
Just because somebody can do landscape photography doesn't mean they can do weddings. My niece did a degree in photography and she was asked to do weddings and she said no, because that isn't my thing. I wouldn't be any good at it.
No.
So
it does take a special kind of person to do wedding photography, for sure. And it is that I always used to say to my brides, remember, which is something that I got from Sue Bryce. It's not mine, but I always used to say it to my brides. You have two things when you come out of your wedding, your husband or wife and your photography, and you better hope that both are good. because
Yeah, that's
everything
true.
else from the day, all of your centerpieces go, all of the table plans and everything go, all of the decoration, it's all in the bin at the end of the day. The cake's eaten, the food's eaten, the dress is boxed up and put away. The only thing you have got to remind you of everything that happened on that day is your photographs. And so, yeah, I would always recommend making sure that when you set your budget, you set a decent budget.
That's right. And I always used to say to people, well, how much are you going to spend on the cake? How long did it take to eat it? How much are you paying per head for the food? How long did it take to eat it? In 25 years' time, at your silver wedding, what are you going to pull out? Mouldy old cake? A bit of flan, a prawn cocktail you've kept frozen? Or are you going to pull out the photos? You're going to pull out the photos. So what value do you place on that?
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one as well. Yeah, I like that. I like that. So with weddings, photography is a major component, and over the years we've seen it grow. So you've gone from having your photographer and to be having videographers as well. So having your moving images as well, and some of the highlight reel of weddings is absolutely amazing. These kind of really film cinematic highlight reels. Awesome. But then we kind of moved into having the photo booths as well, so that we're having that more fun thing. And before that, we had the disposable cameras on tables that people would take. And so that kind of leads us on to the topic of the day, as it were. And that is the Instax 40 that you have been trialing out. This is a camera that we think would be an awesome camera to have at your wedding. Either, I've actually seen this done with other types of Polaroid type cameras where they have them in a basket and they have all the little props and people go up and take a photo and stick it in a scrapbook. But you could also have a couple of them that are on the tables that are shared throughout the day, and again have that kind of scrapbook where people can go and pick them in. But tell us a little bit more about this camera that you've been having a play with, Arwyn.
Yeah, sure. And that whole topic, that's the fun. They are not your professional photos. They will not do in the album and so on, let me assure you. But anyway, so the photo booths are fun. This type of camera is fun. And I'll hold it up here to the camera. You can see this online on our feeds and so on. We've got it. This is the Fujifilm Instax Mini. We'll go with Instax 40. They do a 90 as well. And basically, it is so easy to use. It's all auto. So you press a button, switches on, and then you literally take a shot. Now, a couple of things on holding it. It has something on the back for your thumb to go in, and you hold it in portrait mode. Oh. If you go to landscape mode, it's quite awkward to hold, but it's possible. But it's really for fun portraits. That's what it's designed to be. Okay, and it fits comfortably in the hand. And then you've got to make sure you don't cover the flash and you don't cover the sensor here. Okay, the other thing is you can actually pull that out and it's got selfie on. And so then you've got a selfie mode. You can hold it away from you. And there's a little mirror on the top of the lens, which is a reflection. So you can see what the picture's going to be.
Oh, wow.
And whether everyone's in the picture. You can't get many more than 3-4 people in the picture, depending on the side of their heads.
How long your arms
are. How
far
away it is. Yeah, exactly. So it isn't like a phone and that ability. And that is it. And you press a button. And the film is a cartridge. You can't open it when you've done the first print. And there are 10 on each roll. And 2 films cost $8.99. So that is quite reasonable for instant development pictures and so on. And that's basically it. Regarding the camera, the test results, I've almost done the 2 films, actually. I think I've got a couple of shots left. But I've got some shots and so on, which I'll put up online. And first of all, for landscapes, say, around a venue and so on, it's pretty good. I shot a local lake, fishing lake, and I shot it in sunlight, and then I moved under the shade, and you and I know what that does to sensors of a camera, and I shot the same thing, and it adjusted really quite well. Oh. It wasn't that dull when I was in the shade, so that was quite impressive. They're not the best photos. These are fun photos, okay?
What size are they, Arwyn?
They are very little. I forget the size.
They look like a 3-inch by 2-inch type.
Yeah, something like that, about 3x2. Yeah, yeah. And then I did some shots of my granddaughter, and I did some selfie shots of me with her. And then I did some shots out and about. Now then, the adverts and the website for it all show people indoors and so on. I haven't been able to test it like that. But the only thing I would say is I did a selfie here, and it came out pretty well. I then did a selfie outside of myself, and the flash came on, and I whited out. So I think my feeling is with the flash, it comes on too often, and it is quite blown out, some of the images. And that's what I'd say is one of the downsides. However, you could get around that. You could just put some tracing paper or greaseproof paper over the flash just to dim it down a bit. Just stick it over there, and that'll dim it down, and that'll diffuse it a bit.
Thinking about the fact that a lot of people use these at wedding receptions where it's usually darker.
Yes, it's ideal.
Yeah, I was going to say it probably wouldn't be such an issue. So if you're bringing these out sort of early doors, you've had your wedding breakfast, you're doing that changeover between the wedding breakfast and the evening reception, and those evening people start to come, and it's so the lighting is a little bit lower indoors anyway. You're probably going to find that the flash does its job there.
That's right. Yeah, and that's why I did a selfie in here and I turned the lights out, and it came out almost perfect. So, but the other thing I'd advise is, on that though, is stand a bit away from people, because the flash is quite powerful. But in dark areas, you could probably move a bit closer. So I would say standing at 3/4 length is about where you want people to be, I'd say, in fairly light conditions, and sort of chest up from in darker venues and so on would be my guesstimate. But the lens itself is pretty impressive. It's what's called a 60mm lens, if people want to do it. And the focus range is from 0.3 of a meter.
Yeah.
So that's quite impressive as well. And that's, selfie length, And so basically, I think for a wedding, it's brilliant. It's not disposable. It's reusable, so you could then use it another family event, or it's a gift to guests and they fight over it, one on each table. Price point, it's just over 80 quid. Slightly expensive, I'd say, for one event, but I think it's a fun thing to have, and you could have it, like you said, 3 at a table, go to this area, take pictures, and you leave the pictures there.
Yeah.
Or people could take them away if they wanted to, but leave the pictures there, and then just have somebody on standby, a groomsman or something like that, just reloading with new film.
Yeah.
Just keeping an eye on them. And I think for that sort of thing, it's a really, really good little camera, to be honest. I think Fuji have done a good job, to be honest. I give it 4 out of 5.
Brilliant. And I love that. And the thing is with the wedding industry, there's a couple of areas that I wanted to mention that you could use this in your business. So obviously for photographers, if you want to add it as an add-on to your wedding services, you can add it as an add-on, obviously charge them for the camera, for the films. And you can then leave them with the camera, or you can have kind of a rental price where you leave it with them for the evening reception and you collect it back at the end of the evening and take it back with you, and they get their photos. Wedding planners, you can use this as, because you're usually there from start to right to the finish. I know as a photographer, I used to leave shortly after the first dance because I always said, you don't need professional pictures of all your friends drunk. I'd get a few dancing shots and that was enough, and then leave that kind of camera for the really drunk ones. But as a wedding planner, you're usually there until lights off, sort of thing, so you could add that into your package and have it as that. Photo booth people could use it as an extra to theirs to keep the lines down and things like that.
While people are waiting for the photo booth.
And exactly. So there's lots of ways that you can use this camera in your business as an add-on to the services that you provide. Now, what we have for you today is a fantastic opportunity to win this beautiful little camera. So Arwyn is going to be giving this camera away, and there are a few little rules that you have got to follow to win this camera. Now, Arwyn, do you want to give the rules out?
No, you give out the rules.
Okay, so for this camera to be in your hands, for the chance for this camera to be in your your hands, you need to, one, subscribe to the Wedding Procast UK, wherever you listen. So Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Amazon Music, we are everywhere. So wherever you listen, hit that subscribe button and screenshot it. And then I want you to DM me on Instagram, Donna SPWV, and DM me that screenshot so that we know that you've subscribed to the show. Then you need to follow both Arwyn and I. So Arwyn is Arwyn Bailey on Instagram, and that is ARWYN, and then Bailey as usual spelling. And then mine, Donna SPWV. So follow both of those accounts. And then the last thing we want you to do is to share a photograph on your feed. And it can be absolutely anything you like. Just share a photo, whether it be your favorite photo or a photo you've just taken, or, you know, a beautiful view that you like, family photo, anything you like. Take a photo, put it on your Instagram and tag us both in that photo. And then that will be your entry complete. We are keeping track of everybody who has done all of those things. And the competition is open until the 19th of May at 11 p.m. And then Arwyn is going to do a live video revealing the winner on the following day, on the 20th. So you have a little while to get those entries in. All of the details on how to enter are on both of our profiles and on the show notes for this episode. So you can head to www.spwv.co.uk, hit that little burger menu, hit the Wedding Procast UK menu item, and you will find this post on there, and all the details will be there, and all of Arwyn's links will be there as well, so you can go and find him in other places other than Instagram. Brilliant, too.
Thank you.
And he has a wonderful feed on Instagram, so definitely follow him there. So that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much, Arwyn, for coming on. Thank you so much for this competition opportunity for my listeners. I'm so excited about it. Brilliant. And we will see you guys, well, we will hear from you guys on Instagram when you enter that competition. And I will speak to you all next week. Bye for now. Don't forget to hit those stars and leave a review of the podcast where you listen if you found value in what you heard today. It's a free way you can help the podcast reach more people just like you.